A second term now his. Asa Hutchinson offers a budget that he calls lean and some critics call mean. His lease renewed, the governor renews his drive for lower taxes. Still up in the air, transportation on the ground. When and what kind of a highway program? And the economy still running on overdrive. What does it suggest for the governor and the legislature? Arkansas Week in a moment.
Local broadcast of Arkansas Week is made possible in part by the award-winning Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, Arkansas's largest major newspaper, bringing you local, national, and international news since 1819. By the Arkansas Times, keeping you informed by covering people, events, and politics in Arkansas. By FM 89, KUAR in Little Rock, with in-depth news reporting, analysis, and discussion each weekday.
No recounts in Arkansas, but the head counting now begins. Hello again, everyone. Thanks for joining us for Arkansas Week. Governor Hutchinson has, in effect, begun his second term, a couple of months before taking the oath. He went before the legislature this week to recommend a budget that approaches $6 billion, a spending proposal that would be $125 million above this year's outlays. And true to his word, there's another tax cut. There were some immediate grumbles. The roars will come soon enough. On the panel this week, Michael Heblin, news director at KUAR Public Radio in Central Arkansas, Wesley Brown, reporter, columnist, Talk Business and Politics, and Steve Bronner, an independent journalist. Well, gentlemen, Michael, we'll start with you. The budget proposal, every governor does it every November after the election.
Yeah, and the governor had a lot to say here Wednesday when he spoke to the Legislative Council and the Joint Budget Committee. A $5.7 billion budget. The key takeaway here, as you said, tax cuts. The governor said he would like to reduce taxes for the state's top earners down to 5.9% within 4 years. And this got an immediate reaction, but this is just the beginning of the conversation. It was a polite reception to the governor's proposal, but lawmakers will meet next January, and that's when the real debate will begin.
The immediate response, of course, owed to where Mr. Hutchinson would cut that or provide those additional tax cuts. Legislature cooperating, of course.
Yeah, it's going to be. I mean, 111 million is the price tag for that tax cut, and it's kind of laddered through the years. It'll get down to 5.9% by 2023. The debate will be interesting because of course he's had two previous cuts, and this will go. The top
Which were, and in fairness, Mr. Hutchinson targeted at lower brackets.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. You had the working poor, and then one for the middle income. This will hit the marginal rate. Will hit the upper end of the income bracket. That's where the debate is going to begin. Also, in that he's got to go through the Senate Tax Committee and the House Tax Committee. I think the action always is generally in the House Committee, and I think that's where it's going to be this year again.
Yeah, Steve?
Well, the sniping has already begun. Just yesterday, some legislators have used this process in order to try to kind of take a little shot back at the Supreme Court by kind of questioning some of their funding that comes from the Bar Association and kind of holding it up a little bit. Mm-hmm. And this kind of has its roots in the Supreme Court's decision on Issue 1 before the campaign, and when they knocked tort reform off the ballot. And so some legislators are using this process as a way to, you might say, reassert the legislative branch's position as a co-equal branch of government, or you might say, exercise a little power over the Supreme Court. But that could be one of the things that's talked about here in the next few weeks.
Yeah, and I guess the other issue on that, on the governor's budget, of course, is teacher raises. There's a price tag for that. Is right about half of what the tax cuts will cost, and that's $60 million. And those are the two key issues that are going into the session are going to get a lot of debate right off the bat. I think the session starts around January 16th or so, and right off the bat, those two issues are going to be the ones that really kind of tell how the rest of the session is going.
And the teacher pay is a phase-in.
Yeah, it is a phase, and it's to get those teachers, and there's 174 districts now that are below the average pay of $36,000 a year. So they're going to try to get those teachers in those districts up to that level. I think the governor said the average pay raise for teachers across the board would be about $4,000 per year. So that's that would put Arkansas. Arkansas is now 42nd among the states. We started in this process a few years ago. We were 49th, so this will get us, and he wants us to get us under that 40 level. So those are the issues. The whole teacher issue is going to really be, because there are other issues involved with the Little Rock School District, or they're going to come to the table, and possible work stoppages already in discussion. So all those are going to be issues that come into focus when the session starts.
Yeah, and just to remind, the Little Rock District has been under for 5 years now, I think. Well, not that long, but under the control of the State Education Department, Mr. Hutchinson's Education Department.
Yeah, and they just reached an agreement this week, talks between the teachers union and the district, finally reaching an agreement there. But Hutchinson really tried to keep teachers the focus during the speech, saying that quality teachers make all the difference. Also said that he would make sure the state provides matching funds for teacher retirement, and trying to emphasize the importance of teachers, saying that the state needs quality teachers to advance educationally.
There were also some other spending increases as well, much, if not most of it, Wes, targeted at the criminal justice system.
Yeah, the state police will get, I think, a substantial $7.5 million budget increase. That's to bring in about 24 state troopers. And then on the correction end, the the Department of Community Correction is also going to get a slight increase to, I think they are going to add about 30 new probation and parole officers, and also increase some drug courts. Some monies are going to go to the drug courts. The other issue I think that came up, and Steve talked about some of those concerns, is of course the $38.5 million budget hole that the governor talked about because of issue 4, the gambling initiative. And after the governor gave a speech back when the Joint Budget Committee and the Legislative Council were in discussion, that question really came up because a lot of people are concerned that we're not going to start getting revenues from gambling, the casino initiative, until well down the road. So I think everybody's looking forward to that money coming in, but it's not going to come in for a while.
Yeah, even there were members of Mr. Hutchinson's own party who were expressing softly, probably, this is a really tight budget when you factor in the tax cuts that the governor is seeking, and also the possible loss or the extent of the loss, which was challenged by East Arkansas legislators from pari-mutuel wagering.
Yeah. What will happen when this law, issue 4, goes into effect? There won't be any revenues coming in, and the revenues that come in will go to the local communities, but none will come into the state. And I think there are going to be some casinos, but the construction of those casinos is going to take a while, and the revenues from those won't come into probably late 2019. So that's going to be a real issue, especially if the recession or this economy slows down at that time and revenues are not as robust as we're seeing now.
Yeah. And one other note on tax policy, Mr. Hutchinson also made it clear that by the end of his tenure, another several years, he would like to see the top bracket anyway, income tax cut even by a full percentage point over where it stands now.
Yeah, and that's I think that he wants that to be kind of his legacy. In 2023, when he walks out the door, to say, I've taken our tax code, I've made it simple, I've made it easy to understand, and I've also cut it to where Arkansas is competitive to Texas and those surrounding states.
Yeah, and really made the case that this would make Arkansas attractive as a destination, said that it would spur investment, more building here, would encourage more people or companies to locate here. So really trying to make the argument that this would benefit the state as a whole, even though it will disproportionately help the top earners.
Up in the air, undefined, but then that's often the case. Steve, a highway program. Nobody seems to have a good feel, a good grasp on where this thing is going to go.
Well, it will probably come to the voters.
What shape it
in
will
2
take.
years. Now, what it's going to look like is completely up in the air. But the governor has made it clear. He spoke to the Good Roads Foundation on Tuesday and said that he is going to push for a highway plan. And the reason he's going to do this for several, one is that we need one, and another is because it's not coming from somewhere else. He told the Good Roads Foundation we're going to have to forge our own future because it's clear that Washington, D.C. is not going to come up with an infrastructure plan now that we have divided government. And so the situation we're facing is that the Department of Transportation has identified $9.3 billion in needs over the next 10 years, but only has $4.5 billion to meet them, only about half, to fund the 12th largest highway system in America. And so fuel taxes haven't been increased at the federal level since 1993, at the state level since 1999. And so we're talking about a $400 million difference, even rounding down, of what's lacking. So to make that up, since money's not coming from Washington, D.C., the Highway Department has said that it would need a 28.4 cent per gallon gas tax increase.
Hello?
Or an increase in vehicle registration fees of $208 per vehicle, or a general sales tax increase of 1.16%. So how do you get to those kinds of figures? And that those are, would voters even consider doing that? Well, so one way to make up about half of that is just extend the half-cent sales tax that voters have already passed in 2012 for the Connecting Arkansas program. So it would take care of a lot of it. You could also do it through a bond issue. But one situation with a bond issue is that 25% of the revenues go to interest. $340 million on the past two programs. You could also transfer the money from the state budget, but the governor's against that. So there's just a lot of different ways that we're going to try to have to, a lot of questions will be asked of voters. One other thing, traditionally, cities and counties have each gotten 15% of highway revenues. So to raise $400 million, you've actually got to raise taxes $592 million. Are voters going to be for that? They're going to be asked to do something. The legislators won't pass their own tax increase. They're not going to vote for a tax increase, but they will vote for us to have the choice to vote for a tax increase. That's what we're going to look at in 2 years.
And they've usually had good luck with that. Well, the highway establishment has had.
And not just, in 2011, the Interstate Rehabilitation Program passed by voters. 2012, voters passed the Connecting Arkansas program, half-cent sales tax. Voters in other states have tended to vote for highway tax increases. But will it happen in 2020 in Arkansas? Who knows?
Yeah, and that referendum, of course, gives the governor and the Republican lawmakers a cover. They don't have to say that we raise taxes, and that's the big issue. A governor obviously will get pressure from his right flank on he didn't. At the Good Roads Foundation, obviously he didn't say he was for raising taxes, but he brought up this issue and put it on the table. So, and it's been out there. The Good Roads Foundation has talked about this. You keep bringing it up indirectly over the last several years. So, here we are, and roads are not getting any better.
Well, and like every governor, Mr. Hutchinson, but especially Mr. Hutchinson, has really wanted to economic development as a big part of his legacy, if you want to do that. Well, everyone recognizes that infrastructure is an enormous part of that. You can't get goods to market over roads that look like a lunar landscape. Your moderator's wife, by the way, is getting a new tire this morning.
Yeah, that when you have good construction projects, it not only affects the broader economy, it affects those local community contractors. It kind of spreads out the economic prosperity to many corners of the economy, and if you see those investments in those communities, if people can actually see them, then that's when people are more likely to vote for.
And Steve mentioned this also again. Cities 7.5, counties 7.5.
15 each. 15 each.
Yeah.
It's 30%
15.
total.
All right. Okay. 15 each. You're right. There's enormous pressure from mayors, county judges, aldermen, justices of the peace. We need money. We're not going to raise it on our own and say Pulaski County or Sharp County.
Right, and one of the things that the governor said was that he is okay with us continuing this 15-15 split, but only if that money is spent on roads and bridges. So it would seem unlikely that we would change this because the governor is going to need the support of county judges and mayors. If he were to say, well, this time we're going to keep all the money at the state level, then he would lose that support and it would be harder to do it. So whether or not, it seems likely that there will be at least that the cities and counties will also get some money out of this deal if it passes the voters.
All right, on to another matter, and it's a big, huge budget matter. And Michael, that's Medicaid. Almost 4,000 additional Medicaid recipients left the payroll, or not the payroll, but the rolls.
Lost coverage, yeah, because of not meeting primarily the work requirement. The Department of Human Services released its report. The work requirement went into effect in June, and in recent months we've steadily seen a few thousand people losing coverage each month for not meeting the requirement. 80 hours you must work per month or meet other qualifying factors, education, public service, whatnot. But this data that came out on Thursday shows even more people. We've got now a total of about 12,000 people who have lost coverage for not meeting this requirement. We've got so far 2 months, we have people, just over 6,000 people who are not meeting the requirement and are on track to lose coverage next month. So this is all part of the governor's changes that he brought into effect with the Medicaid expansion program. Got approval from the Trump administration. Arkansas was the first state to impose a work requirement, and we're now seeing the results of that. And of course, there has been debate about the fact that it's difficult for some to get online to do what they need to enter their data and to show they're meeting the requirement. Arkansas is among the worst states in the country when it comes to connectivity to be able to access the web. And there are a lot of factors that people are pointing to, advocates for the working poor, who say that Arkansas is making it especially difficult for people to even get online and to meet the requirements to prove that they qualify for the Arkansas Works program.
And all this despite an admonition, well, not an admonition maybe, but a cautionary from Washington. Why don't you slow down on this? Why don't you think about it again?
Yeah, there is a request in federal court, and yes, there are talks from the federal government that, maybe you should slow this down. We'll see what happens with the court filing, but this is just showing that a lot of people are having difficulty meeting this.
Yeah, and I guess the Hutchinson administration, of course, has pointed to the low unemployment rate at 3.5% as people are getting that number, 12,000, I think, and 100 and something. So, folks, some of these numbers, even though there's not much detail on where these numbers are coming from or who they are, but I know the Department of Workforce Services is looking at some of the data to see if many of these people are back into the workforce. We have a tight labor pool right now. The unemployment report came out again at 3.5%. So that could play into the factor. And of course, they call it Arkansas Works. So that's important.
Politically, Steve, with the electorate and in the General Assembly, it's a pretty popular program, though.
Arkansas Works, the work requirement is popular. But one thing, watch this court case. They're expecting a decision in the first 3 months. The attorney for the plaintiffs told me yesterday they're expecting a decision or hoping for one by March 31st. And there's been another case that ruled against another state's work requirement. I think it's Kentucky, and very similar to Arkansas's. So if Arkansas's is declared illegal, if the courts throw it out, that will happen while the legislature is in session.
Yeah, drop it right in the middle of it.
You would think that hopefully the governor would
Why are
like.
we laughing about this? It's good for our business anyway. But anyway.
You would think the governor would want Arkansas Works to be funded before March 31st, that signed and delivered, so that we're not discussing funding Arkansas Works after the work requirement may have been thrown out.
Mr. Hutchinson has said in years previous, or several months ago, maybe even longer than a year, that the Affordable Care Act is now a part. It is woven into Arkansas governance because of the millions of dollars it attracts and the people it covers. Is there the suggestion, though, that should the work requirement be, let's suppose for a second, speculate that the work requirement is overturned, declared. What's its status with the General Assembly now, or then?
Who knows? I mean, the governor said during the campaign, in debates, on AETN's debate, that I had to do this or this would not have passed the General Assembly. Now, what would happen if it did get thrown out while they're discussing funding Arkansas Works? You know, the argument which has been so divisive in the past few sessions, the last one or two sessions, there did seem to be more of an acceptance that this is now part of how we do things, and that it would be very difficult to take away insurance from 250,000 people. Still, it only takes 25 votes or 26 votes in the House and a fourth of the Senate to take it away. So we'll have to wait and see. But for now, watch that court case.
For now, the governor and the General Assembly would seem to have the wind at their backs, Wesley, in terms of the economy. Earnings up, oil prices down, consumer confidence, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, well, we had a report this week. Arkansas GDP in the second quarter was 4.4%, which is really double the economic growth in the first quarter. We don't know what's going to happen in the second and third quarters where we are now, but the broader economy, the U.S. economy is strong, 4.2% GDP. So we're just kind of following the path of the U.S. economy. Things are going into the legislative session. I think revenues we have probably about a 75 million surplus. Things will be going good. And on the business side, we've got our two largest companies, Walmart and Tyson, both had record earnings this past week. I think Walmart's $1.71 billion in profits for the third quarter, and Tyson had a record $3 billion in profits. And many of the Arkansas corporations, publicly traded, and some of the privately held companies are doing very well hiring. The only real thing out there is can you find the workers to fill the jobs that you need? On
this program, we have reported that Walmart was a little late to the game in terms of e-commerce. It seems to be making that lost ground up pretty quickly.
Yeah, their focus, and their CEO said it during the conference call with analysts, that our focus right now is getting faster service and getting people taken care of when they come into the stores or whether they shop online. And they're catching up with the Amazons and the eBays of the world in their online. But the real thing they also have the brick and mortars where people who don't have online access or people who use a combination. Do your shopping online, then go pick it up at a Walmart store. They're doing very good at that.
Energy prices.
The energy prices, there's a lot of issues going on with OPEC, but prices are, if you're looking at your pump prices now, they're coming down. And we may see if the Saudis continue to pull the spigot out, we could see our pump prices come down around $2 before the spring driving season begins. So things are looking good, but if the interest rates from the Fed comes in, then toward late 2019, we could see some of that momentum slow down. Well,
the Fed is going to do what the Fed's going to do, and that's protect the currency.
Yeah, they are, and the impact, the stimulus impact of the tax cuts in 2017 are starting to wane. So we are going to see, and along with the interest rates, we are going to see some slowdown effects in the economy. The question is, will it go into negative numbers or just kind of even out? So,
Our time's up. Gents, thanks to you for coming in. As always, thanks to you for watching. Have a wonderful and safe Thanksgiving holiday, and we'll see you next week.
Local broadcast of Arkansas Week is made possible in part by the award-winning Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, Arkansas's largest major newspaper, bringing you local, national, and international news since 1819. By the Arkansas Times, keeping you informed by covering people, events, and politics in Arkansas. By FM 89, KUAR in Little Rock, with in-depth news reporting, analysis, and discussion each weekday.